Welcome in. We are live here at the Fantasy Football Universe, the double FU, the FU times two. I am Jeremy Schulman. This is Jesse Moeller. We are here to talk about our instant reaction to the Justin Jefferson signing. That news broke this morning or last night, depending on where you live in the world. I am in Europe, Jesse over on the West Coast. So Justin Jefferson signing the highest paid receiver in history. Well worth it, well deserved. So it's been long awaited as well. But Justin Jefferson finally signs to the Minnesota Vikings. Jesse, what are we thinking about JJ in Mini?
Yeah, we knew this was coming, right? We knew he was going to be the highest wide receiver player in the NFL. Like the things he's done is just out of control. So looking at his deal, it's the same total money Davante Adams got, the $140 million, except his is a 4-year deal. Davante Adams was a 5-year deal. So that's the difference between the two. They were like, guess what? We're going to match the money that Adams got, but we're going to give you significantly more. He's the highest non-quarterback paid contract in NFL history. Like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about true difference maker. $88 guaranteed million at signing, which is absurd, and $110 million guaranteed. So like over the course of 2 years, they'll at least at a minimum pay out $110 million. This doesn't include bonuses and everything structured in the deal. So usually when these numbers drop, the numbers change a little bit. Like once we get all the information. So this is what we have from Schefter right now. It's going to change a little bit, but basically it's a 4-year. $140 million deal with 110 guaranteed is the best way to look at it. So he's getting paid basically $35 million a year, which is far and away the most of any wide receiver. So yeah, it's like significantly above Amon-Ra, significantly above Tyreek, significantly above AJ Brown. Anybody who's gotten paid like Justin Jefferson is multiple millions of dollars of deals above, which makes sense because he's been that guy ever since he left the league. So yeah, it's good stuff. I'm enjoying seeing this contract come through.
Yeah. And Jalen Waddle just signed yesterday or 2 days ago for a 3-year extension, $85 million, just about. So, you can see the disparity there in this contract. I think once Waddle signed, Minnesota knew they needed to get done. I think it's CD Lamb who's up next.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas is just notoriously terrible with managing these. Like, when do we sign these guys? I mean, it's horrible. So, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, I think was smart signing him now. CD Lamb is going to command somewhere very, very close to where Justin Jefferson money is. And that's a problem for the Cowboys. But Minnesota got their guy. And with JJ McCarthy there, locked in for the long term, hopefully he's as good as advertised or as good as they hope he's going to be. If that's the case, I mean, he's got his number one wide receiver ready to go.
Right. And it just sets up for him down the road. I mean, we're a little bit worried about him in Dynasty, just like a smidge, just because he's going from Kirk Cousins to JJ McCarthy. But if JJ McCarthy is a good quarterback, it's not going to matter because Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Like, we can talk about Tyreek Hill and all this fun stuff. Like, if I'm building a wide receiver room, like, I'm sorry with Justin Jefferson because he has the age. He's still, like, approaching his prime years, which is the craziest thing to think about. He's not even old. So he's still in that prime window for the next few years. So this contract's basically going to run through his entire prime. You're not going to get a dip in production. Like, it's just going to be just – this guy is well worth the cost of admission. So, yeah, Minnesota did what was right. They're not doing it with the Cowboys. We still have Brandon Ayuk. They got to figure that out in San Francisco. There's a couple other guys like we're waiting on. But besides that, like, Jefferson set the market, and then everyone else is going to react to that. So then the Lamb's going to react to the Cowboys, and then finally the 49ers are going to figure it out with Ayuk, and then we're kind of just going to move on because there's also T. Higgins, but I think he's going to come slightly below those two guys just because T. Higgins has dealt with injuries and things of that nature. But, yeah, it's Jefferson's world. We're all living in it. So, yeah, congrats to him and getting that bag because that is well-earned money, my friend.
You mentioned Dynasty. Let's talk about that for a second. Justin Jefferson in your Dynasty rankings, wide receiver 1, 2, 3. Where do you slot him in today?
I default him to 1, but like you can make the case for Lamb or you can make the case for Chase if you really want it. I know some people are really big on Amon-Ra St. Brown, so if you want to do that, you can have top 4. And then we get into Harrison and my guy Puka and all those guys. But yeah, like I just default to Jefferson 1. What's interesting is I have Lamb higher in redraft, so I probably should be putting Lamb above at 1, but like the name cachet with Jefferson still there. It's just like he's so good. And we talked about him in our rankings, kind of like, is he too high? Is he too low? Or where's he at? I think I was like at worst, he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver is what I was saying. So, the assurance is there. Even last year, he was better without Kirk Cousins on a points per game basis than he was with Kirk Cousins. So that just shows you how talented a wide receiver. And if you look at like PFF grade, yard per route, any stat that you want to look at, Justin Jefferson is going to come out good in it because he's Justin Jefferson. He's an incredible wide receiver. This is what it is. So I have really no concerns with Justin Jefferson. Like he's about as situation proof as you can get. So for me, he's right in there, 1A, 1B. I don't really care. Where does he come out for you in your ranking?
Yeah, he's my 1B. There's a tier 3 guys there. So it's Chase at 1, JJ at 2, and then CD Lamb at 3. Amon-Ra is a tier below, but he's number 4. Like you said, I'm not going to argue with anyone who wants to put him up with those guys. He's proven it for a couple of years now. But yeah, JJ's just on a different level, talent wise and skill wise. I don't care who the quarterback is that you reference. I think the only reason for me that Jamar is ahead of JJ is simply because he's tied to Joe Burrow for the next 15 years. They're going to sign Jamar Chase when it's time. Burrow's there. I mean, those guys, the rest of the team might suck, but those two guys are going to be making boku bucks in Cincinnati for as long as they're alive and playing football. So I love that pairing. We just don't know what JJ McCarthy is yet. And it's a slight knock. Like you said, it's a slight knock to Justin Jefferson this season as McCarthy gets up to speed. And, are they, going to play around and put Sam Darnold in for the first month and a half of the season is possible. And that can affect some numbers, but we're talking about slight effects for Justin Jefferson, just a player of this ability and magnitude. He's just going to continue to eat and as many targets as CD Lamb is going to get. And he may be, again, the wide receiver one this year. Lamb might be. Justin Jefferson's going to be really close in terms of his overall production. So I don't hate that at all. Yeah, Lamb one. Again, you can order these guys however you like. For me, it's Chase, JJ, Lamb, and you said you have JJ one. What's your order?
Yeah, I have JJ and Lamb. Those are like my top two guys, basically. Like, and I have Lamb above in the redraft, so I probably should just put Lamb at one just because. But I think the whole thing with JJ that I'm not worried about is his name cachet. Like, it buys him time because he's been so good. If he puts up 80 points per game, no one's really going to be like, oh, I got to move him down, right? Whereas it's like if Lamb doesn't hit his ceiling or like maybe Chase drops down a little bit, people are going to be like, you know what, maybe move down. I don't think anyone's moving Justin Jefferson out of tier one in like wide receiver rankings unless he has multiple injuries or multiple seasons of that. So yeah, like I'm just not worried. Like it's just you get Justin Jefferson, you know what you get. Like you don't have to worry about it. Worst case, puts up 17, 18 points per game. High end, he puts up 25. Like you know that range of player you're getting. It's absurd, and it just comes down to like redraft how you feel about it because dynasty is just chef kiss out. I want as much Justin Jefferson as possible.
And I also love the fact that all around the field there, maybe not at running back, we'll see what the combination of Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler can do out of the backfield in the passing game. But you certainly have TJ Hawkinson once healthy. He's commanding some coverage from the defense, and they have to pay attention. And Jordan Addison proved last season that he's capable of taking over a game if need be. So he's going to command some attention. You're going to have to double JJ, but there's going to be times where you're just not going to be able to, and he's going to sneak past the defense. So there's really no issue here. Yeah. Do you want to throw that question up on the board?
Yeah, give me a second. I'll pull it up.
Yeah.
How do Puka and Marvin Harrison Jr. stack up compared to the top guys we talked about? Like, are they like tier 2 guys, or they tier like where do they stand for you personally in Dynasty?
So in Dynasty today, like I said, I have I'm in a redraft. Let me get back to Dynasty, but I have those 3 guys back at the top. Again, this is PPR rankings. Then I have in my tier 2, Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson, very high in Garrett Wilson. I think obviously, right? AJ Brown is my wide receiver 6. Marvin Harrison Jr., my wide receiver 7. Puka down at 10. I'm probably the lowest of anyone I know on Puka. But yeah, MHJ is just an absolute monster. Puka, I think, for me, again, it comes down to these quarterback pairings, right? Matt Stafford is great, but he's going to age out in a year or 2. Who's going to be the next QB there? Is he going to be able to support Puka and whoever else they bring in? Because I don't think once Cooper Kupp goes, whether skill-wise or actually retires, I don't think they're going to sit tight with just Puka there. They're going to add to that offense and bring in another number 1 type of wide receiver. So, yeah, I'm not completely sold, but he's still a dynasty wide receiver 1 for me, for sure.
Yeah, Puka's a stud. I have him at 4. I have him above. I know this is gonna sound blasphemous. I have him above ASRB or ARSB just because, more like Puka. But yeah, I'm just not worried. Like he did what we were hoping, like what Justin Jefferson did, what Jamar Chase has done in the situation, and everyone's like, "What if the situation changes?" Well, it's not going to for the next year, possibly because Stafford's locked in for a few years. So Stafford needs to actually retire for that contract to go because the Rams are not going to move on from him, right? Because we saw last year Stafford was one of the better NFL quarterbacks in the league. So yeah, and I play dynasty in short-term windows. I'm not trying to project 4 or 5 years out. I'll get to that when that happens. And I know people are talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. putting him above Puka. That's fine if you want to do that. I'm not doing that because that's just assuming risk. I know who's locked in. So yeah, I just that tier 2 is pretty big for me. I think it rounds out with Rome Dunze at 10. I have AJ Brown at 9. I have a couple other guys mixed in there. We have Drake London at 8, Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7. I'll probably move London above Harrison Jr. Yeah. And then Garrett Wilson 6, Amon-Ra, Puka. Like I really don't care between those guys. Just give me all of those guys. As many of those guys as possible, give me all. Especially the tier 1 guys. I want the true difference makers. We'll get into the kind of the dynasty discussion a little bit like later on in the season, how like the wide receiver market's oversaturated. That's a whole nother discussion. I want the true impact producers, and Justin Jefferson, all these guys are like Olave. That's a whole nother bag where it's like I probably want to get out of the Olave range unless he gives me production, because he's not giving you difference making production. So you're just paying for youth at a wide receiver. So that's a whole other thing. His situation needs to improve. So he better hit this year, otherwise he's gonna fall in rankings. Like that's my whole issue with Olave.
With this signing, obviously, it relates a bit more to dynasty rankings, but let's quickly dive into redraft and what we think this year. We can do it with this question for sure. We don't know what JJ McCarthy is going to be this season. We have a belief, and at least Minnesota has a belief that he's going to be their guy going forward. At least they hope that. But for this season, 2024, is Justin Jefferson the wide receiver 1 for you? Where does he stack up in your rankings, and where are you comfortable taking him in your redraft drafts?
Yeah, so if I go to my overall rankings, I think I have Justin Jefferson at 5 or 6. Give me one second, I'll pull it up. But I have 2 wide receiver above him. I have CeeDee Lamb and I have Tyreek Hill. And then it's Jamar Chase if you want to take Jamar Chase above. Yep. Fine, that's fine. My whole thing with Justin Jefferson is we literally saw last year the scenario where he's not playing with Kirk Cousins, and he still put up over 20 points a game. So, like, this is the thing. Like, the question is, how good is he going to be? I don't know. He's going to be one of the best goddamn wide receivers in the NFL. Like, I don't have concerns with him. Like, he's as situation proof as you could get from any wide receiver. And my thing with Addison, Hawkinson, those guys are nowhere near as good as him. Like, I think those guys are worse than like Higgins in Cincinnati or some of the other situations. Like, Puka has Cup, so it's a little bit whatever. Like, Cup's a little bit down too, but like, paying the premium for Jefferson, I'm fine with it because we've seen it. He's going to absolutely dominate targets, even if the pass volume changes. It's going to siphon for Jefferson. It's not going to go to Addison. It's not going to Hawkinson. It's not going to go to Jones. It's going to go to Jefferson. Like, that's the guy that they're going to feature. So I think we are kind of discounting a truly generational wide receiver in the NFL at a time where, like, this is probably opportunity to buy him in Dynasty. I think this is because if he hits this year, guess what? He goes back to wide receiver 1. You can't touch him. So I think this is the one case where we have a buy window in Justin Jefferson where we're all kind of like worried about JJ McCarthy. I think now's the time to buy him if you can. So like if you can get yourself to Justin Jefferson, I would happily do it because you're probably not going to get another opportunity like this because that quarterback, if he's good, he's signed for 5 years. Like they have that pairing. So this is my whole thing with Justin Jefferson. I'm just not worried about him. He's too good, man. Like when players are that good in Dynasty, I really don't want to fade them. And Justin Jefferson's one of the best players we've seen in the last like decade from the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. And like you were saying in redraft, he's a little bit lower for me. He's my wide receiver 4, but I'm comfortable taking him, by pick 7, probably in half PPR, full PPR, a little bit further up. I agree with you. I'm not worried about him at all. Obviously, Minnesota's not worried about him. And I think whatever they got going on at quarterback, they still have Kevin O'Connell running the ship there, and he's proven he can put together elite offenses. To your point, though, about Addison, about Hawkinson, I was thinking about this with Drake London, like the level of talent between Drake London and the other wide receivers and Kyle Pitts is levels above, right? Kyle Pitts may be a little bit different, but Justin Jefferson is the same. The level of talent between him and Addison and Hawkinson is so much different. I like those guys and their talent to, absorb coverage. But they're not going to take away targets from the elite guy. And that's kind of where I am with it. So Justin Jefferson this season, yeah, he might be my wide receiver 4, but if he's my wide receiver 1 on my team, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, and I don't know what Aaron's talking about here. This is just nonsense. Can we not talk about Juju and MT, 2 guys that have dealt with the injuries where Juju's a slot wide receiver who freaking sucks. I'm sorry, but the talent differential, like peak Michael Thomas was a special player. I'll give you that. But dude, like countless injuries zapped who he was. He didn't play for basically 3 years. So like, it's kind of a different situation. Also, this was Michael Thomas was older. Justin Jefferson's not in that range too. So I think an interesting discussion we hit on quick is Aaron's comment about Olave. Is he a top 12 dynasty wide receiver for you? And if he's not, like, why is he not a top 12 dynasty wide receiver?
Olave is really tough. I love Chris Olave, but I think the issue that I have with him is Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. I don't know why Dennis Allen still has a job, to be honest. I don't know what's going on there. Sean Payton left 5 years ago? How does Dennis Allen still have a job? And I think it's because this defense had a lot of all pro players years ago, and they aged very well. But now we're starting to see the decline of the New Orleans Saints. We saw it last year. It's just they're talking about using Taysom Hill out of the backfield. They've been doing this for years, right? These guys are all good enough to get you a couple of wins per season. But the Dennis Allen leading the ship has got to change. And I'd be shocked if he's the coach in 2025. I would not be surprised at all if he's one of the first coaches fired in 2024. I just think it's going to look terrible. That impacts Chris Olave. Look, I know Derek Carr was new. I know he was first to getting used to in his first year the offense there in New Orleans. Chris Olave, I think, is a special player, but he's in a crazy situation. I love Chris Olave. Right now, he's I've been switching back and forth between redraft. Let's see if he's in my top 12. He is. He's 11. He's 11. So he's right there. I love Chris Olave, but I'm a little concerned about him in the short term. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. They did change the scheme a little bit. They have Clint Kubiak running the scheme. And they've talked about this a lot. And Chris Olave has even said it. Like, he hated the scheme previously because he's a downfield wide receiver. He said the scheme now fits him perfectly, where he should thrive. My whole issue is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is like addicted to checkdowns. He's like, hey, Alvin Kamara, I want you to catch this and go 2 yards down the field and not do anything. Stop featuring freaking Alvin Kamara, man. He's not the same player that he once was. So, yeah, they really need to focus this offense around Chris Olave, because he's a very good wide receiver. Now, I will say, if he doesn't hit this year, he's going to tank in rankings. People are going to be done with him. They're going to be like, all right, I'm not. But if he does hit, he's going to jump back in the elite. So I think Olave's range of outcomes is massive, and I'm fine. I have him at 14 in Dynasty, but you can take him above Tyreek. You can take him above a couple of those guys. Like, you can take him over Nico if you wanted to, because similarly, like, I think his range of outcomes is massive. If he hits, he can hit big, or if he suffers like he has previously, where he gives you 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, like that, that's a T. Higgins type season where you're just kind of like, it's fine. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. So I think Olave is probably the most boom bust of those guys in that range, where he could fall outside the top 20 or he could jump into the top 5 if he hits. And I could see either range outcome. So I'm really torn on what to do with Olave, but I'm finally happy they're changing the scheme. They also have Shaheed, who's another good downfield wide receiver. By the way, they have downfield weapons, and hopefully they use those guys downfield and it works out, because that's how you take this offense to the next level. So hopefully Clint Kubiak can do that. I'm not sure if he can. I'm just a little bit worried with Olave. I just think there's risk baked into him. So I'm fine taking Olave in that range personally.
I mean, as much as I love Chris Olave, I think I love Shaheed at cost even more. Derek Carr has proven in his career that he can, if he has time, right, which is the whole issue here. If he has time, and he should have a little bit more time this year, they drafted Fuaga in the first round. Then he's going to be able to support one fantasy viable wide receiver. He may be able to support 2 fantasy viable wide receivers. I like Rashid Shaheed as kind of a mid to back end wide receiver 3 this season. He should break out. He has the talent. Carr just needs the time to find him a little bit deeper downfield. I'm also not concerned about Juwan Johnson taking away targets. We know Alvin Kamara is there. And he'll command the targets as well. But as a third option on this offense, Rashid Shaheed, I think, can produce with Chris Olave eating. So I like that. Derek Carr, for everything that we're saying here, I don't want to touch him in Dynasty. In redraft, he's done. But let's wrap this up by getting back to Justin Jefferson, the man of the hour, who signed the biggest wide receiver contract ever. Right now, he's got a crap ton of money. What is it, 110 guaranteed dollars? This guy is never going to starve, that's for sure. But look, bottom line, I think we're saying is don't be afraid to draft him in redraft or Dynasty, as you always have. He may take a slight hit short term as the Vikings are figuring out what's going on at quarterback and the new state of this offense post Kirk Cousins. But in the long term, he's just as elite of a talent and just as elite of a fantasy asset as he always was.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think the time to sell him in Dynasty was actually before last season, where he was significantly overvalued compared to every other skill position player. That was the time you wanted to get out. Now that he's like in that tier of the same players and kind of the Bijans of those guys, like, now is kind of the time where I'm like, if you have him, you just love what you have, because like, he's not overvalued. He's not like going top 3 in startups or anything crazy like that. Like, he's like that, the middle to late round one. So yeah, I love Justin Jefferson. Like, I'm all in on Justin Jefferson. I will happily draft him in redraft. He will be my anchor wide receiver. He'll be my anchor first round pick. Like, I'm fine. Like, he's that good. I'm not worried about him. And I know we talk about it. Like, this is just everything setting up for him to be good for a very long time in Minnesota. So congrats to Minnesota getting it done. Like, this is what we like to see. Rewarding special players and giving them the contracts they deserve.
That's it. That's going to do it for us as well. Fantasy Football Universe. We are available everywhere: TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, other places. Find us. We got our website, fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Check us out. We've got content coming out daily, written, video, podcast, audio. We're on Spotify somewhere, I think. So check us out for breaking news like this, for rookie profiles. If you're still doing rookie drafts, for redraft content, we're just starting to drop plenty of dynasty content. We did a mock draft the other day. So get in, check us out, like and subscribe if you want. If not, just watch our content for free and enjoy it. We're here to help you win fantasy leagues, and that's about it. So for this guy, Jesse Moeller at jmoeller05, I am Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel. We will see you next time.